We're going to talk about the types of pitches. We're going to talk about what makes a compelling pitch, the information that you want to include in your pitch presentation, and then some quick tips about presenting in general. And then I'll hand it off to Hassan to talk more about the flash and how to actually present well and present yourself well. So jumping right into it, the types of pitches that you might be familiar with. The first one is competition style pitch. And primarily today, we're going to be talking about this competition style pitch to prepare you for the Saga pitch. For those of you who are going to be entering that particular pitch competition, and also to prepare you for other pitch competitions that you might be entering as well. We're starting with the competition style pitch because I find that if you have this storyline down, you can start to manipulate some of these aspects and manipulate the information that you have to stretch it or shrink it based on your need and based on the audience that you're presenting to. So for the competition style pitch, there are a couple of elements here, a couple of key elements, and the length of that yellow line between the bubbles indicate roughly just how much time you might want to spend on that particular portion of the pitch. So if you have a 3-minute pitch, right, you can kind of roughly estimate the ratio of time you want to spend on the story or the ratio of time you want to spend on the problem versus the solution, product, market, team, and then close, right? So if you have a 5-minute pitch, of course, that expands in a similar ratio. Now, with all that said, this is not a one size fits all. You have to take a look at the competition that you're in. You have to take a look at the audience that you're presenting to, who might be the judges, what are their backgrounds, and how they might be receiving the information that you have, and then adjust this accordingly. All right, so not a one size fits all. What we find, however, is that, and I'll dive into these elements a little bit more, what we find is that perhaps in a competition, the people who are watching the competition, they might not have as much background information about you, about your company, and about the problem and solution and the product that you're actually looking to pursue. So it's worth to spend a bit of time on all of these elements. And the reason why perhaps the line between the problem and solution is the longest is because that really sets the stage, and that's what gets people caring. And some of you might wonder, hey, why is the line between product and market so short? Well, there's an explanation for that, and I'll dive into that a bit deeper. But what I want to mention here before I jump into the next style pitch is the story and the close. These are really small but impactful elements. Right, I'm not going to talk about the story specifically later on when we talk about the elements and the information to include, but this is your opening. This is the chance for you to really connect with your audience, really show an example of something that is happening in the real world, to then set the stage to jump into the explanation and the statement of the problem that you're addressing. All right, so if we think about a Disney Pixar movie, right? Think about that first act. That's what's setting up the story. All right, you're building that environment at this point in time, right? So picture person so and so. They've experienced this particular issue, and this is what their life looks like. And the problem that they're facing is, right? And now you're opening it up towards the actual statement of the problem and the explanation. Right? But that initial story piece helps to get people empathizing with the problem that you're looking to solve. Right? So very impactful yet small and quick element. The close is something that rounds out the presentation. It's supposed to be impactful. It's supposed to be the mic drop moment. Right? So you've gone through all of this information. What is the main point that you're trying to drive home? What is that catchy slogan that you have that really encompasses your vision and the mission that you're trying to accomplish, and why, and that bigger reason for existing as a company and as a venture. All right, that's the mic drop moment. So I'm not going to dive too deep. I'm not going to dive deep into those two components later on. So I just wanted to talk about those particular aspects before we move on. So that's the competition style pitch. Those are the elements. The reason why the colors, problem and solution are the same, and then product and market are the same is because we often hear about the terms problem solution fit and product market fit. All right, so there's a bit of a logic there. Those are, the problem and the solution are highlighted in that way because to have that information complete, you're demonstrating problem solution fit. Whereas if you have product and market fit, then you would have the necessary information to fill in those buckets and those aspects of your pitch. All right, and team, it's more about confidence building, about why you should be the ones taking it forward. All right, so that's why the colors are there. That's competition style pitch. Again, not a one size fits all. You can manipulate it, but that's the pathway, and those are the elements that you can move around based on who you're presenting to and which competition you're presenting in, and the theme of the competition. Now, you might hear about investor style pitches, and this is a bit different from a competition style pitch because the people you're pitching to are investors. They want to make money. So what they want to see right off the bat is the big market, right? The market opportunity is $100 trillion, right? Now you have their attention, right? Whereas in a competition, it's the story. You're trying to connect with the individual, right? So this is where it's really key for you to really understand who the audience is and why they might be listening to you. What are they trying to get out of this conversation? Why would they be sitting there listening to you for the next 2, 3, 5, however many minutes you might have, right? Hit them with that right off the bat. So the investors, they want to know that this is the right market, right? That there is even a market opportunity. Then the next question that they have is, well, just because there's a market opportunity doesn't mean you're going to capture any portion of the market. So how are you going to capture the market? Who are you, right? So market, team, and then you tell the story of your company, right? What's the ecosystem that you're in, the market, and then who are you to navigate the ecosystem, and what's your vehicle, right? That's the problem solution product and business, right? And a business encompasses more of the nitty gritty than what you might get to speak about in terms of the competition style pitch, right? So we're not going to dive too deep, but there are some common elements in there. Now, elevator pitch, this is the quickest one, right? It's just get to the next conversation, just get people interested. So you see there are really only 4 elements, and of course, not a one size fits all. So depending on who you're talking to, you might only get to talk about the problem, or you might only get to talk about the solution. You don't actually get to the product, right? So these are things to keep in mind. And this is why it's so important for you to have your information in all of these buckets so that you know and you can react based on who you're talking to. This is the point that I'm going to pull out, and this is what's going to resonate with my particular audience at this point in time, right? So writing your pitch isn't just for competing or pitching to investors or preparing for meeting somebody in an elevator, right? It's really to help you to communicate the story of who you are, why you're starting your venture, and what it is that your venture is doing. And this is critical outside of these particular contexts. If you're looking to bring somebody on board as a staff member, if you're looking to make a sale, your company's story is very important. All right, so having all of these elements allows you to pick and choose the information to tell a cohesive story and a logical story that gets people interested in what you're working on and the problem that you're looking to solve. Okay, I'm going to jump ahead with my answer of what makes a compelling pitch. Everything that you said, I believe, is important. What I believe to be the essential aspect of a pitch is, drum roll, evidence. Without evidence, you can be so confident, nobody's gonna believe you, right? Without evidence, you can have a profitable project, but if you don't communicate that, then, well, nobody's gonna listen to you, right? So the evidence, the actual meat and potatoes of who you are as a company, right? That's the important part. So I've seen many entrepreneurs who focus on telling the story, focusing on the marketing aspects, but they're not actually building their ventures. Right? So at the end of the day, it comes down to your customers, how well you know the customers, and how well you're able to compile the evidence that you've gathered from customers and then communicate. All right. So the key underpinning of any pitch is, in my opinion, evidence. And what does evidence look like? All right. Evidence comes in many forms. And so you might have heard, about market research, about secondary data, about primary data, quantitative, qualitative. This is where it comes through, right? So that means you need to do your homework. You need to actually build your venture. If you want to have a compelling pitch, you need to be building your venture, because the evidence will shine through if you build your venture and you actually collect this information, right? And one of the mistakes that I see from early stage entrepreneurs who are putting their pitches together, they overly rely on the secondary data. And that's not compelling enough, right? To have a really compelling evidence, a compelling pitch, ideally you would have all of these points of information. You would have all of this evidence, and you would slot it in a way that makes logical sense. All right. So when you have quantitative and secondary data like big stats and market trends, that's fantastic. That's telling the audience that you have a potential opportunity here. There's a market, but that doesn't tell anyone why you're the one to succeed in the market, right? If you have qualitative secondary data in terms of expert opinions, well, that's fantastic. If you have um, a doctor saying, oh, this particular method of treatment for this particular condition would be very helpful. Well, yeah, again, that's great, but it's not specific enough to what you're working on, right? Just because 9 out of 10 doctors recommend, or dentists recommend a particular type of toothpaste, and your toothpaste that you're looking to sell is similar, that doesn't mean that you can succeed in the market. Right? So secondary data is great. It's providing the context, right? Whether you have quantitative or qualitative, it's providing the context. You also need the primary data, right? If you just have the primary data and don't have the secondary, then people are wondering, okay, well, what context are you playing in? Is there actually a market, right? So they might be confident in you, in your venture, but they might not see the bigger vision, right? So it's important to have the primary and the secondary. In terms of primary quantitative data, survey data, if you're surveying your customers, if you're surveying your users, that's very useful. If you already have sales or LOIs, letters of intent, that's fantastic. That is quantitative primary data. You are collecting the data for yourself, and you're saying, hey, here it is, right? And there's no better primary data than actually having sales. Which company would you invest in? One with $1 billion in sales, or one with $1 in sales, right? Given they're asking for the same amount, right? So that's a very compelling piece of evidence, but that alone will not be sufficient, right? So all of this paints a picture. When you put everything together, it paints a very cohesive and complete picture. In terms of qualitative primary data, interview data, right? If you've done the work early to understand the problem, you might have contacted your customers, and you would have gotten some good qualitative data where they're saying, yeah, this is a really compelling problem. Yeah, it's a very painful one. Or they're telling you, in customer reviews, maybe they've already tried your product or your service, and they've said, yeah, this really solved my problem, or this was so great, the customer service was so great, whatever it might be, right? So when you put all of these pieces together, now your pitch is very compelling. It's really painting a picture that, yeah, there is a market, there are experts saying that this type of thing that you're doing is on the right track. And then you have primary data from your customers, from your users, to say, yes, this particular venture is doing good enough for me, or not doing good, or doing very excellent for me, hopefully, right? So you've got the external and you've got the internal side of the argument. And in terms of where this data fits in, if my slide ever changes, it's game show time. All right, so let's take our guesses in terms of a competition style pitch with this type of narrative where you go through story, problem, solution, product, market, team, close. Where does the big stats, where does that fit in? In terms of big stats, here's where I see it fitting in. Identifies and sets up the market, okay. It goes into the solution. Investors want to know how you're going to solve the problem. Okay, so again, there's that a bit of overlap in terms of solution and problem. Now, where I see big stats being very effective in a pitch is market. And these big stats are talking to us about what the situation actually is, right? Big stats might be helpful for the problem, but not necessarily the problem that you're solving, right? So that's a hint for some of the other types of evidence that we have here in the list. But big stats, we're talking about things like, oh, the global market is $50 billion, or there are 1 million people in Mississauga alone who face, there aren't even, is the Mississauga population even 1 million? I don't know, I'm making stuff up, right? But these big stats tell us that there are people out there. There is something happening out there, right? And that's why it fits into the market, because it leads into some other things. Talking about the market opportunity. If you talk about big stats, it might fit in the problem if you say, hey, look, there are 10 million people who are facing this particular problem. Yeah, it can fit there as well. Where I see it most fitting mostly is really the market. All right, so there's a bit of overlap, because big stats, are you talking about problem big stats, or are you talking about market big stats? Right here, we're talking about market big stats. So not quite the solution, because now the solution digs a bit deeper into what it is that you're actually doing. Okay. Market trends. Where's this one going to go? Go in market, as the name suggests. Right. So this is where the big stats leads into the market trends. Right. Currently, there are 50 billion people. Currently, there's no 50 billion people on Earth. Currently, there's 50 million people who are experiencing this issue, or the market is $50 billion, and it's expected to grow, right, to $100 billion in 5 years. Or we've seen an influx of this particular type of company in the last couple of years, and there's been X amount of investment dollars being poured into AI or blockchain, right? Those are market trends, right? And that fits into the market because it's telling us that something is going on. There's some kind of opportunity, right? And it doesn't go in the problem, because we're talking about the market, right? If you're talking about the problem trend, if you're tackling a health issue, say, and you're saying that the problem trend is that more kids are vaping, right? That's not a market trend. That's a problem trend, right? So for something like that, yes, you can put that in the problem, right? And so just be clear, when you come across a piece of information, what is it actually telling you? Is it telling you about the market where money is being exchanged? Or is it telling you about a problem, right? So that's kind of where you really have to be clear about what information you actually have in order to slot it in the most effective place. Market trend does not go into product, because the product is focused on you. What product are you creating? All right, and I'll talk a little bit about that, but I can see where your logic is coming from, because the market trend is about, hey, this type of product might be increasing in popularity, right? And that is part of the market, right? That's not your product, that's the market, the dynamic of the market. all right, that's going on. So that's why it fits in the market section. Okay, expert opinions. Where would expert opinions go? Where I've put expert opinions is solution. And the reason why it's in solution is because, think about how you might have set the stage with the problem. Or you might have said, hey, X amount of people face this. These are the causes. These are the effects. Experts say that this is the way to solve it, right? So essentially, expert opinions act as perhaps an inspiration for why you have pursued the solution that you think is fitting for the problem, right? Or it acts as evidence to say that your solution actually does what it's supposed to do, that it's actually feasible, right? So if you're suggesting, I'm just going to put a bunch of buzzwords together, AI, blockchain, chatbots, I don't know, that doesn't make sense, right? But let's say you're suggesting that, something that is perhaps nonsensical, something that just uses a bunch of buzzwords. If you don't have the expert opinion to say, hey, this could actually work, this is seen to solve the problem in a lab setting, then your solution might not have the compelling evidence to suggest why it's unique or why it's actually fitting of the problem. All right, so I put expert opinions here to support the efficacy of your solution and its fit and suitability for the problem that you've identified with the particular customers that you've identified. So I think most of you got it here. Survey data. Where would survey data go? So survey data goes in solution. Now, for those of you who said problem, the reason why it doesn't fit in problem is because it's quantitative, right? So it can fit in problem. It's just about how you frame your survey. And I've deliberately put the survey data in solution as a reflection for how users or customers have reacted to your solution. And I purposely put it in solution because there's a tendency for early stage entrepreneurs to focus on the survey data at the problem stage. What we want to get to at the problem stage is really that rich qualitative data of understanding the experience and the pain points of the customers, right? If you have that, then yes, your survey data can complement it. However, I deliberately put survey data with solution because you can use survey data to back up how well your solution is actually doing. Where we see survey data in terms of a design thinking process might be after you've gone back to the customers to test your solution, to test your prototype, to test your MVP, right? Then that's when the survey might be most useful as they give you ratings about things. Yes, you can interview them as well, and that will be useful as well. But if you're increasing the amount of customers and the amount of users and getting them to test your solution, then surveys might be a bit more efficient. However, understanding of the problem, you're probably not going to get very deep with just a survey. All right, so that's why I didn't put it in the problem and with the solution instead. All right, sales and letters of intent. Where I've put sales is market, right? This is your interaction with the market. If you have sales, if you have letters of intent, if you have any kind of customer commitment, right? It's not just saying that there's a market out there, it's saying that you've captured some of the market, right? So there's no better evidence to say that, hey, we might be successful than actually being successful in converting customers, right? So the sales and the letters of intent go in the market, right? So you can start it off with, hey, the market trend, this is how big the market is, and this is how the market is growing. And here's the sales that we already have, right? Here's what we've already done. Here are the customers that we already have, right? So now you're setting up the stage, the context. There's a big market. And then you're saying, and we've already gotten started in capturing the market. All right. So if you don't have sales or letters of intent, yes, you don't have this particular piece of evidence, right? So what other information can you bring to the table to demonstrate that you have some commitment from your customers or potential customers? All right, so that's what sales and letters of intent is meant to indicate. All right, the customer commitment. How can you demonstrate customer commitment? What exactly is a letter of intent? Well, a letter of intent is an agreement by a customer to say that they are willing to purchase from you at a later date should you meet these particular requirements from them, including things like the price and the feature set and what you might have promised in terms of the product that you're delivering. All right, and letters of intent are fairly common in the startup world because there's no money exchange, and it's not really that legally binding, right? Because at this stage, it might be very vague and your product might change or the problem might change. So, however, it's still written commitment. If you have done your research right into the problem, into your customer persona, into developing your solution and your product, then ideally, your customers who have signed the letters of intent would follow through with that sale. And if they don't, then perhaps there's something upstream that needs to be fixed, right? So if you have letters of intent, that is customer commitment. Mostly for B2B, yes, in terms of a letter of intent. How it manifests in terms of a B2C market is pre-orders, right? Or email signups, right? So you can have, these are letters of intent. These are customers who are intent on providing you with money later on, right? So if you set up a pre-order, maybe they don't even put in any money, or maybe they put in a couple dollars or a fraction of the full cost, or there are systems in place as well that they can put their money in escrow, or they put their credit card information and they only get charged once you ship, right? So there's that's the letter of intent in terms of a customer commitment. All right, so if you're a B2C company and if you have pre-orders, that's fantastic. That represents the sales and LOIs bucket of information that you can demonstrate customer commitment and your ability to capture any portion of the market. All right, so interview data. Where I've put interview data is problem. So a bunch of you got this, and this is the differentiation that I wanted to make between survey data and interview data. Right? At the early stages, while you're trying to understand the problem, the pain points, the causes and the effects on real people, that's where you're having those interviews, to have that rich qualitative information, to have those conversations that really help you to understand what is going on. What are people experiencing about this particular phenomenon that they might characterize as a problem or a pain point, right? So that's why interview data is there. I saw a point there about, it might fit into solution as well. Well, absolutely. If you go back with your MVP and you gather some survey data and you talk to customers who have tested it and they give you some interview data, 100%, right? Like that fits in there as well. And the reason I put it in problem is because I want to really emphasize that while you're trying to understand the problem, it's really the interviews that help you to connect with the customer and to understand, empathize with who they are and their experience of the phenomenon that might be the actual problem or the pain point. All right, customer reviews. Where would that go? It's product. All right. So customer reviews, this is when you've actually launched a product. And this is kind of the blurred line between interview data, fitting in solution, and the customer reviews. Now, the implication here is that you've actually launched and sold your product, right? It's gone off to the wild. You're selling to strangers. And now there are people who are saying, who have no connection to you, who weren't part of the early stages. They've bought your product, they've actually interacted with it, used it, and they're saying, wow, this is actually great, right? So that's why it fits into the product, right? In this section, you're talking about things like, what are the unique features, right? What's the secret sauce behind your product. Why can't other companies replicate? And part of that, to support that argument that you have a unique product that solves a problem and that can be sold at a reasonable price and that people are willing to buy, are the customer reviews, right? That's the qualitative aspect to say, yeah, like I bought this and I support it, right? So that's why customer reviews are in the product section. So you kind of have to really be clear about what information you have on hand. If you don't have that particular piece of information, work to get it, right? If you don't have sales or letters of intent, get that. If you don't have expert opinions, well, find an expert who might be able to give you a bit of information, right? Call up, connect with a researcher, connect with a faculty member and pick their brains about what their research is and how it might relate to, what solution you're actually looking to solve, and ask them if you can quote them, right, in your pitch or, on your website, right? So if you don't have the evidence, get the evidence. Simple as that. And then from there, you can manipulate it and put it in different places depending on the audience and depending on the situation in which you are pitching. All right, so I'm just going to fly through some of these aspects just very quickly. What are we even talking about when we're talking about the problem, right? And in gray here, in the subtitle, this is what essentially the audience might be thinking, right? If you're just starting to pitch, they're thinking, why should I care? Why should I even spend the next 3 minutes listening to you instead of daydreaming about corgis, right? Why should I care? This is the compelling problem, right? So sell them on that. It's about a greater mission. State the problem. It's as simple as that, right? It shouldn't take you 3 sentences to explain the problem. You should really dial it down to a simple statement. And if you can't choose, if your problem is so big that you can't do that, then that means perhaps your venture needs a bit more focus and that you need to pick a particular pain point that you're starting with, right? It doesn't mean that you're only doing that forever. You're only doing that, right? But what is it that you're starting with? What is it that you're immediately doing? All right. So after you've set the stage with the story, let's say, hey, I chatted with so and so. This is their problem. This is their pain point, and this represents a big problem for X amount of people, for many people. The problem is, state the problem, right? And then you want to dive into the main causes and the effects. Why does this problem exist? And if it were to continue to exist, what does that look like? What are the effects on the economy, right? What is it costing people? What are the effects on the environment, on actual people's quality of life, right? You can bring all of that in, right? What are the main causes? What are the effects? And what's currently being done? This is often overlooked. Who are your competitors? If you say you have no competitors, well, you missed out a big chunk of explaining the problem that you have. All right. Think about direct competitors, indirect competitors. If people aren't doing anything to solve the problem, that's your competitor, right? That's currently what's being done. They're ignoring the problem. So now you have to talk to what is it that you're doing that will get people to take action, right? Instead of ignoring the problem, right? So what is currently being done? Why is it inadequate? And now you set the stage for you to jump in and say, well, we're solving the solution by doing X, Y, Z. All right, so you state your solution. And at this point, after you've gone through the problem, what's going on in the audience mind is, well, that's great. That's something that I should care about in terms of this big problem. But what are you doing about it? Why should I continue to listen to you instead of daydreaming about corgis solving the problem, right? So what is it about you? What are you doing? And which cause and effect are you specifically tackling? In the previous section, you might have listed, 2 or 3 causes and effects each. So which one are you tackling? And be very specific here, because you're not going to be tackling all the causes and all the effects. Which one are you starting with? Be very specific. And what outcomes are you promising? So you must have heard value proposition, right? That's synonymous with outcomes promised, right? So what's your value proposition? What are you promising to your customer, to your potential customer? Not the output, not the product, but it's the outcome, right? What is that change in state? What is that that benefit for them, that intangible benefit, right? So that's the solution. After you've done that, people are wondering, well, okay, does your solution actually work? How does this thing actually work? And this is where, you dive into the actual product. Now we're getting a bit more granular about things like the technology that you've included, or how you're actually doing things. If you have a service, well, what does that look like, right? So state what the product is, the product category. It is a platform. It is a device. It is a vehicle, right? State it. What is it? And then state the unique features. It does X, Y, Z. And the reason I say state is because I've seen too many entrepreneurs fall in love with their product and take too long to explain the unique features, right? So stay away from this. And if you notice the pathway, the product is very short. We are just simply stating a lot of these things to make people understand, okay, yeah, there's something here, right? And then afterwards, they can follow up with the conversation to talk more about what makes you unique and the actual inner workings of your product, right? So say how the features are unique. What's that secret sauce? Maybe you have a researcher on your team who is commercializing the research and nobody else is doing this research. So you are on a bleeding edge of this particular technology, right? What enables the uniqueness? And what have the users said about the product, right? So this is going back to the customer reviews, right? If you've launched a product, if you sold anything, what can you bring in terms of evidence, right? What have you learned from the customers? After that, then people are thinking, well, fantastic. You can solve the problem, but is this actually a business, or is this something that's going to cost too much? Right now, we're looking at the vehicle for moving this solution forward and this product forward. Right. So who is the person making the purchase? This is your customer. And notice that I put person. Right. So many entrepreneurs make the mistake of saying, I'm selling to government, I'm selling to schools, I'm selling to XYZ. Those aren't people. Who are the people that's actually making that purchase, who's deciding to purchase from you? That's your key customer persona, right? So be as specific as you possibly can, right? So even when people say, I'm selling to parents between the age of 25 to 45, that's a huge range, right? So be very, very specific. Make sure you're not just using demographics to talk about your customer, right? Because if you only use demographics, then it shows that you don't actually understand who your customer is. It's a very surface level description. What is the price point / the pricing model? You might say I'm charging $20, or I have a premium version. I charge $5 for the basic, and then if you want additional features, charging $20, right? So outline that just very quickly. You don't have to explain it too much. How big is the market? Going back to the big stats, right? And the market trends. How much of the market have you captured? That's your sales. That's your letters of intent. Those are your pre-orders. And then state any notable customers or users. So if one of your customers is the Queen of England, and she bought maybe you're selling her gloves, and she bought your gloves, and you can see a picture of her on the news wearing your gloves, right? Like, that's really cool, right? That's a notable customer, right? So that provides some kind of social proof as well, right? And in terms of the team, this is who you are, right? So who are you on a leadership team? What are your positions? What do you bring to the table in terms of experience and knowledge? And if you have a gap, who are your key advisors? I've seen many teams who are just a team of 5 engineers, and people are scratching their heads. Well, how's this going to be a business? Right? If all of your engineers, and you have no business background, you don't even have business advisors, right? So you really have to be clear about who you are, what you need to move things forward. All right, where are your knowledge gaps? And the key advisors are the ones who will fill in those knowledge gaps until you can bring somebody on board. All right. So after we've gone through the market, we know it's a business, we know there's a business opportunity, but why you, right? Just because there's a business opportunity, just because you've done something, how do I know that this will be ultimately successful, right? Why are you the ones that I want to bank on and continue to move forward with? So that's the pitch structure in a nutshell. I'm going to jump through the quick tips first. before jumping into questions, because I think we're almost at time here. So please feel free to drop your questions in the chat and then I will address them afterwards. Okay, quick tips, add or distract. If you're thinking about putting in elements, putting in information into your presentation, whether it's on the slides or whether it's in your script and what you say, is it adding or distracting? When I said daydreaming about corgis, were you thinking about corgis or were you listening to me, right? So how does that take attention away from you? Ultimately, you want the attention on you, the speaker, not on the slides, right? So if your slides are full of text, that's distracting. People are trying to read it, right? Or they might tune out and think, you're not a good presenter. Why are you putting this text on here? I'm tuning out, right? So ask yourself, every element, everything that you put on your slides, every word that you put into your script, into your pitch, is it adding to the message or is it distracting from the message? Rule of threes. Try to condense your ideas into 3 buckets. Right? What are the 3 causes of the problem? What are the 3 main effects? Right? You might be tempted to put in more. Right? What are the 3 key features? What are the 10 key features of your product? You might have a lot. Right? Try to stick to 3. Right? Because people's memories are very limited. Right? And 3 makes it simple, makes it organized, and it also forces you to be organized about your ideas. Right? So try to keep to the rule of threes in what you're saying and also what you're displaying on the screen on your slides. If you ever say that your product or your business is for everyone, that's a huge red flag. It's not for everyone. And neither is your pitch, right? This is where your research really needs to come in. Know who you're presenting to, know who the judges are, if you can access that information, right? If you can't, so you can take a reasonable guess based on who is hosting the competition, right? If you're pitching to an investor, that's easy, right? You can dig them up. They have LinkedIn. They have portfolios of companies that they've invested in, right? So be very targeted. If anybody watches Dragon's Den, you'll notice that some of them are really only speaking to one dragon. They only want one particular person and what they have to bring to the table, right? Instead of pitching an overall vague pitch, right? That's supposedly for everyone. If it's for everyone, it's not for anyone, right? So if you ever think, hey, what I'm doing here is for everyone, then you might have to scale things back a little. It might be eventually, but who are you starting with? Frame with space, all right? So whether that's on your slides, use your blank space. If it's in your script, use your pauses. Slow down when you talk. Talk faster. Talk slower, right? So you can provide that space. If you have a very important thing, important key message, right? Frame it with space. Give it time to breathe. All right, let people actually understand what it is that you're saying. And especially if you're having a dialogue, if you're asking questions, frame it with space, right? I've seen so many people who ask questions and then they talk and answer the question for themselves, right? So if you're asking the audience, if you're asking your investors, if you're asking your judges a particular question, let them think about it, right? Give them space. Let your messages flourish. Give it space. Emphasize key messages, right? If you have a very key message, the market is $50 billion and we've made $10 billion in sales, that's a pretty key message. You can repeat that. You can put that big on the screen. You can say that really fast. You can say that really slow, right? You can pause, right? The market is $50 billion and we've captured $10 billion. Like that's emphasizing a key message, right? So play around with your pace, play around with your volume, and play around with silence as well to make sure that you emphasize your key messages. And repetition also works very well as well. Remove bullets. If you have a list like this one, just take out the bullet. It just shows that you don't know how to make a good looking PowerPoint presentation slide. All right, there's no room for bullets. All right, if you need to list something, either condense it to 3 and put it in 3 buckets on your slide, or you find another way to really focus on the message that you want to say. Remove the bullets, right? It's as simple as that. Find another way to communicate the information. And speak, don't read, right? And that means don't read off your notes either. It's a lot easier now that we're in a virtual environment, because you can look at the screen and you have the notes right in front of you. But it's very easy to see, right? If you're watching somebody provide a speech, you can see when their eyes are moving on the screen, right? You just, it's a couple centimeters away from the camera, but you can see when people are reading, right? In the in-person format, it's even easier because you'd have a piece of paper up there. But the idea here is you want to connect with your audience. You want to connect with the listener, and that comes from speaking, not reading. Whether it's from a physical piece of paper, whether it's reading off your screen. The key to do this is to practice. Practice, practice, practice. Know your message, that you can just talk to it, right? You don't have to read. There's a couple phases of practice that I find, right? You practice not enough that you forget what you have to say and you have to refer to your script, or you practice that your script so well, but you forget if you lose your train of thought in the stressors of the moment of the pitch. You lose your train of thought and you think, well, I don't know what came before, and now I have to find the right script, right? That's the second level of practice. Practice to the point where you can just wing it, where you know the message by heart, where you know the keywords by heart, and you can just talk, right? And that goes back to having that storyline and being able to pull information depending on your audience, depending on your context, and depending on where it is that you're actually pitching and who you might be pitching to, right? Those are all the quick tips from me. Here is the full list, and that is everything.
Well, I want to show you how to actually present professionally on camera, which is such an important thing. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. I love what John covered. It's a lot of good stuff. He talked about, the compelling pitch, the evidence, the data, the content, which is all really good. I'm going to pretty much just tell you how to use all of that and make it interesting. Because, I mean, you can have the best data, you can have the best evidence, you can have the best information, but if the person listening to you is falling asleep, it doesn't matter, right? And that's what I tell my students. I tell them, you can be the smartest person in the room, but if you cannot communicate your intelligence, if you cannot let the people who are listening know how smart you are by your communication, then what's the point? They won't know. In an interview, you can come in with the most experience, but if you cannot communicate your experience, what's the point? You're not going to get the job. So the communication part, the presentation part is actually really important. Before we do that, before I actually get into all that, I want to just kind of talk about our camera here. And you guys are going to be presenting virtually, correct? Yes? Give me a thumbs up. Virtually, awesome. So there are etiquettes to virtual presentation. And in fact, guys, you want to make sure you do everything perfect because every little thing counts, okay? So, John talked about the beginning, how important that was, the first impression. I tell my students, first impression is sometimes last impression, right? And once they get an image of you, it's hard to change that. So kill that beginning, that first thing, that first, what they think of you, and that's going to be what they see, right? So in regards to image, guys, in regards to presentation, if you have a camera on, try to do your best to be in the middle of the camera. I think that is usually best. And your head should be close to the top of the screen so that you're kind of covering majority of it, right? Yeah, John was like, hey, John, it's okay, man. You got a little gap, but it's okay. We hook you up, man. A little gap is okay. But sometimes, my students, they're like this, man. I said, brother, what is this, a mugshot, man? Come on, man. And then sometimes they're over here. I look up the guy's note. Some guys in the corner, you only see like the left eye. It's some creepy style cameras. Guys, I know you guys are better than that, but make sure you're in the middle. And at the same time, chest up so that you can see your hands. Guys, body language experts have spoken that if the person listening to you cannot see your hands, they are less likely to trust you. It's just something that we have in our minds, fight or flight, from back in the Stone Age, whatever it is, that we need to see hands, open hands, especially for an interview, guys. Actually, they say if your hands are under the table as you're speaking, the person just unconsciously trusts you less. Get your hands above the table, show your hands. If your hands are behind your back, your body it's got this mechanism of fight or flight. It's always ready to defend itself. So you want to make sure that your hands are visible. Okay, and if you're too close, you can't see your hands. And then if you're too far, you're too far, but you want to make sure you're balanced, which is right about here, right? Now you want to make sure the background is clean, right? Now, I mean, I got some stuff in the back, but this is not my actual studio. This is my work office. I work for the city of Mississauga. I work in a gym actually, guys. So I'm in a fitness center right now. Yeah, the people outside lifting weights, and I'm here doing a presentation. So it's part of the job. It's okay, guys. So background should be clean, and it doesn't have to be that it's absolutely nothing. It can be your furniture, like Jacqueline's got a nice background. She's got her posters and whatnot. That's cool. Let's see what else. Tina's background is all right. Maybe she'll just close the door. Erica's background is okay. Mehdi's all right. He's got some clothes in the back. It's okay. Now, guys, it's as long as it's clean, it's neat, it's not distracting, should be fine. I still have to back to my students, but I got so many stories. Some of these guys, they got a good background. One of my students had his Spider-Man underwear in the back. I said, brother, the last thing I want to see, I teach 7 to 15-year-olds, by the way. So, guys, when you're teaching 7-year-olds, you see everything. So, yeah, one of my students, like I said, Spider-Man hanging on his bed. I said, brother, I don't care if it's Iron Man, Hulk, Batman. Get the underwear out of the screen, man. And sometimes I see the moms and dads chasing each other, cooking in the back. And so make sure you're somewhere where it's not distracting. You're in your room. You're not in the living room. The sound is clear. All that is important. The other thing, when you're on camera, guys, when you're presenting on camera, when it's virtual, it's actually much harder to captivate the audience than in person. So what does that mean? That means you got to be a little bit extra, okay? People on the other side, they're going to fall asleep quick. Now, you want to make sure you get their attention. How do you get their attention? You get their attention by just being a little bit more enthusiastic, a little bit more passionate, a little bit more energetic than the usual in-person, presentation that you would do. So just try your best to just be a little more, okay? This way you're capturing the people and you're able to get their attention. Now, in regards to eye contact, in person, you would look at people, right? The best way to make someone feel special and feel someone engaged is you actually look in their eyes. Now, you don't look at them too long, guys, okay? If you're looking at a person like this and you're speaking, oh, yeah, and my presentation, this business is amazing. Oh, my God, you're going to love it. And then that person's going to be, man, this guy's creepy. He's looking at me for like 5 minutes, So you don't want to be a creeper, in person. But on camera, you can't really be a creeper because everyone just got this screen. So what do? How do you give eye contact on? So, guys, take your finger right now, people that got the camera on, and show me your camera. Where's your camera? Put your finger on the camera for a second. Yeah, go ahead, guys. Don't worry, you can clean it after. Okay, there you go. Okay, now there's some computers up there, guys, laptops. I don't know who invented this, but the camera's at the bottom. Because I do this exercise a lot, I've seen a few students, they had the camera actually at the bottom. That's like the worst laptop ever. Because then, when you are presenting, that's the other thing is, camera should be eye level, okay? Because if at the bottom, now you're looking up like this. And if at the top, you're looking up like this. But it should be eye level. And right now, it's about eye level. Always look at the camera. Now, the thing is, when you look at the camera all the time, you can't see people. You want to see their expressions. That's why I tell you guys to turn on your cameras, because it's so important for a speaker to see the expressions of the people they're speaking to, how they're reacting, and they can adjust. So you don't want to always just look at the camera. You want to look down, look at the people a little bit, look back at the camera. And this way you're not feeling awkward, because it is a little bit weird just looking at the camera lens. Like I'm doing it right now, and I'm like, you're just looking at like a black hole, you know what I mean? But once in a while, look down and look back up. But you see, it's just a different, when you're looking into the camera, it's like you're looking into their soul. You see, guys, doesn't it feel like it? What's that actually? I'm too far away. Let me see here. Spotlight. You see how it looks like when I'm zoomed in? I'm looking right into your soul. You see, and you want to do that once in a while, because that is how they will feel connected to you. That is how they will feel like you're looking at them instead of speaking like this, right? Or speaking like this, right? It's a total different experience. So that is camera. That's just the 101 on camera. When you guys are presenting, please make sure that these things are there, okay? Now, there's a few things that John covered. He said at the beginning, like we talked about that. And we're going to talk about storytelling and why that's so important. Because, John talked about what makes a presentation so compelling. I'm going to talk about what makes a presentation so memorable, okay? Okay, to be remembered. Guys, I've been in so many speech competitions, so many. I've been in Toastmasters, I've been in international, here, everywhere. The one thing that you need to have to win, if there is a pitch contest, is is memory, is that judge to remember you. Because what's gonna happen is they're gonna listen to like 10 presentations. That's a lot. Okay, fourth, fifth, sixth, seven. You know what's gonna get you to, take it to the next level is whether they remember you or not. And now, obviously, that memory has to come with substance. That's the John part, right? So the substance is the John part. That's really important, because if you got the flash and you got the story and you got all that, but you got no substance, ain't no that doesn't make sense, right? Your business, you're not making sales, or there's no market research, or there's no evidence. You're just all talk. So, but when you have both the evidence, the content, the market research, all that, with the story, the presentation, now not only do you have the substance, but you also have the presentation to get people to be interested, to get people to like you and remember you, okay? Because without the story, guys, they are not likely to know you, who you are, and connect with you. Again, people do business with those they know, like, and trust. In order for them to get to know you, they have to know your story. And then when they know their story, they will connect with you, like you, and trust you. Now, John talked about the closing. And the closing is also so important, because that is the last thing they remember of you, right? Think about it, guys. Anybody who's been to a restaurant before, raise your hand if you've been to a restaurant. Yes, you guys don't eat out. Wow, these guys say entrepreneurs, of course, they got no money, right? Okay, guys, you can go. There are some cheap restaurants out there. Come on. So yes, you go to a restaurant now, and you had such an amazing dinner. The chicken was tender. It was hot. It was spicy. Whatever it is, I don't know what kind of chicken you guys like, but the chicken was good. And then you order the dessert, and the dessert is so bad. It's the worst taste you've ever tasted. Now, what's the last thing that's gonna be in your mouth? What's the last taste that you're gonna, when you walk out of that restaurant? Is it the nice chicken, or is it the dessert? Which one? The dessert, guys. The dessert. So just remember this in your presentation. You can give a killer presentation, a killer, but if your ending is not strong, that's the last thing they remember. Okay, finish strong. Start strong to get the first impression. Finish strong so that you're remembered. Okay, guys, remember that. So those two parts, as intro and close, I always say, like, if you're gonna really work on what you're gonna say, those are the two parts. And the middle, you can kind of freestyle it. But the intro and the close is key. Intro is your story. It's what you get them hooked with. They say, guys, that the first 6 seconds of a presentation or a speech, you have 6 seconds. The first 6 seconds is when your audience decides on whether they want to continue listening to you or not listen to you. Right? We have short attention span. So what are you going to do in your first 6 seconds? What are you going to do in your first part of your speech? Hello, my name is Hassan Wadi. I like to take long walks on the beach, and I came from here. No, go into your story. Get right into who you are. Most of the time, people come and reintroduce themselves. You don't need to do that, because somebody's already introduced you. They've introduced you. They've introduced what you're going to do. You get right into it. The best way to start a presentation, a speech, I would say, is always a story, right? And then you go from captivating them, connecting with them, to your meat and your content, your evidence, and all the stuff that John talked about, so that now you're showing that you're credible. You're credible, okay? What I'll do now is I will share my screen, and then I'm gonna go briefly over the importance of storytelling, guys. Why it's so important, not just for your pitch, but for your brand, okay? When you actually, everyone here that's pitching as an entrepreneur, is a business owner, and you want to grow, you want to succeed, you want to do business, and guys, this is a key component to succeeding. I'll tell you that right now. And in fact, it's a key component to selling. Selling is kind of like a show, right? You have to be able to speak, you have to be able to present, you have to be able to persuade. And when you're pitching, you're selling. Right, I work with a charity, guys. I work with the HCI, so I'm their brand ambassador and spokesperson. I do all their videos. I travel. I just came from BC, British Columbia. Anybody heard what's happening in BC? Anybody heard? Yeah, the floods and the mudslides. So I went down there actually to capture the story and to distribute food and goods. I came back yesterday, and when it comes to fundraising, when it comes to raising money with a charity, the number one thing to get people to donate is, what is it, guys? Yeah, it's a story, emotional stuff that gets the heart. Now, we could tell them millions of people are starving, this, that. That's the facts, right? And it's important. That's really important. But when coupled with a story, you get people by the heart, and that's what the story is for. You get people by the heart, and you give them the facts, and then you have their donation. Okay, really, 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 really important. So think about that. Think about how are you telling your story. Yes, I see in the chat for your business, right? So we went there, we did distribution, I do videos. We have a story of a family that's in trouble. We share that story. People donate. We find another family, whether it's an orphan, a single mom, whatever it is. That's what we do. In a few days, I'll be traveling to Turkey, Lebanon, and Syria. I'll be doing the same thing. We're going to be meeting orphans there, single mothers who are struggling, visiting different homes, and then obviously fundraising. We'll be going with some influencers, and they'll be doing the exact same thing, and then we'll be raising money coming back. But again, it's all connected, guys, because at the end of the day, you're convincing. You're convincing someone, right? They say facts tell, stories sell. So it doesn't mean one's better than the other, guys, right? Facts tell. They tell you what's happening. But the story is the one that sells. So facts tell, stories sell. And a fact tied to a story is 30 times more memorable than a fact alone. Remember that. Because, you know, we've all been in high school, people come up with their Bristol board and they're telling their cancer does this, and people are falling asleep. But you tell a story of a victim who had a family member who had cancer, or maybe your presentation's on smoking, and you're talking about how bad smoking is. Eventually, people will get bored of that because, yeah, we all know that. But if you tell them a story of maybe a family member who was affected by smoking, and then you give them the facts, you've already connected them, you won them over through the story. And then they want to listen to the facts. You know what I mean? They're engaged, right? So keep that in mind. So let's go into presentation slide. You guys see my screen, right? Good stuff. Okay, give me a thumbs up. You see my screen? Yes. Let me see that, guys. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Sorry, guys. We got to go on slideshow view here. Current slide. Beautiful. And I'm not going to go through all my slides because I covered a lot of it already. But you might be wondering, what's your story, Assam? I'll tell you my story. I started off as a personal trainer. And I was just a trainer. That's all I knew I could do. And I was training, teaching classes, did really good. Eventually, for the city of Mississauga, I got promoted to a supervisor role. I managed a gym. I managed my instructors and personal trainers. And as I moved up in a leadership role, I realized the importance of speaking and communicating to become a leader. I was shy in meetings. I wouldn't speak up. I had to do presentations, PowerPoint presentations, and I just didn't do too well. I didn't put my hand up. I was shying away and whatnot. And there was one time where my boss asked me to cover for a presentation for somebody else, and it wasn't my job. I didn't want to do it, but you want to impress your boss, right? You got to say yes, right? You can't say no, guys. That's what I mean. You don't have a boss, right? That's right. I remembered. You guys are entrepreneurs. You don't have bosses. Amazing, guys. You don't have to worry about that. But anyways, she asked me to do a presentation, and I said yes. And I totally blew it. I did a terrible job. And then because of that, I said I never want to go through that again. So I joined Toastmasters. Anybody know what Toastmasters is? Raise your hand if you know what Toastmasters is. Raise your hand. Let's see. Okay, some people know. Toastmasters is an international public speaking organization that helps people improve their public speaking skills. Really, really, really important organization. I joined it. And I said, I'm going to work on my communication skills. I did it for 4 years. As I improved my communication skills, I realized, wow, I started seeing opportunities come my way in my job, in my city job, and outside of my job. One of them was the charity job, right? I started getting this opportunity, that opportunity. I started joining contests. And this was one of the Toastmaster contests. I'm holding the awards. This is my first one, actually. And I never wanted to join contests because it was scary. Actually, before this pitch prep happened, guys, they were telling, I remember I was part of the organizing committee, and they were worried. They said, well, some people are not comfortable pitching, and maybe we shouldn't do a pitch contest because they're uncomfortable. And I said, guys, so what? Put them to the competition. Let them get uncomfortable. Even if they're scared, that's a good thing. Because what happened is, guys, you have to be able to master this if you're a business owner. You cannot shy away from being a salesperson or a person that presents. You cannot do it. You have to be good at this part. You have to improve, and you have to work on it. And so the fact that you're doing this pitch prep, whether you win or don't, I'll tell you that right now, the competition or whatever it is, you're going to grow. Because a big part of my growth was competitions. I did one, I did another one, and another one, and another one. And just the pressure and having to prepare for it So everyone here, just know this. That pressure you're not going to get anywhere else. And that pressure is going to help build you and make you much stronger, much smarter, much more prepared, and a better communicator, okay? So I started joining contests, and that went great. From the contest, you know, and becoming a better speaker, the city started giving me more opportunities. This was here, me with the mayor and the city manager, and we were doing, it was a United Way challenge, and I was the MC here. And I started getting opportunities, right? As I realized the effect that I had through of improving my public speaking skill, I said, hey, you know, what if I can teach this to others? What if I can teach this to others? And that's when I started my own business. Yes, I'm an entrepreneur too, guys. You guys think you're the only entrepreneurs. No, I'm with you. I'm double right now. I'm double. I'm working for the city of Mississauga. I'm also have my own business. And so I started my own academy, Youth Speaker Academy. These are my students. This was their graduation. We had about 500 students graduate at that day. They're holding certificates. And I said, there's a problem here. A lot of people have skills, but they're not able to communicate the skills. So again, back to John, what he said, the problem. And I was fixing a problem. Kids went to school, they did their thing, but they never really worked on their communication and public speaking skills. So I created a program where parents can enroll their kids and do that. And so that was a solution. My program was a solution. Since then, I've had more than 1,000 students, like I said, that have coached and mentored. YMCA is one of my big clients. We coach all their students as well. And then obviously the charity job came in. I became the Sultan of Turkey. Actually, no, I'm just joking, guys. This was just a joke. I just put that picture up. This was actually, I was in Turkey, guys. And you know what? You pay like $10 or something. You put on the outfit and take a picture. One day I'll become the king. Don't worry. But this was just a joke, okay, guys? It's not part of the story. Anyways, but you see now, guys, that was my story as a business owner for Youth Speaker Academy. And that was the extended because I have time. For you guys, you got to shorten it. But now you see what I went through. When you know that I went through the struggle and I overcame it, that my story is very relatable, and now I'm teaching others, my credibility to you is much greater. You say, wow, you know, like this guy would be the perfect teacher for my son to teach him public speaking or teach her public speaking. You know, he went through the whole challenge. He went through the journey. They connect with my journey. And in fact, everyone connects because everyone's scared of public speaking. Actually, raise your hand if you get nervous when it comes to public speaking. Raise your hand. If it's something that makes you nervous, yeah. In fact, guys, do you know what the #1 fear in the world is? You know, based on stats, people are more afraid to speak than to die. Can you believe it? It's true. It's true. It's very nerve-wracking. And spiders, I think, is in the top 5 for sure. Spiders, guys. Can we agree? Spiders in the top 5, but don't worry about that.
Say spiders.
Yeah. Or you know what? What's worse than spiders, guys? There's nothing worse than spiders. You know, centipedes. Centipedes. If I see one of those, oh man. Or even worse than that, you guys don't have these in Canada. We have them a lot back home. Flying cockroaches. Flying cockroaches. Those things, I mean, you're running with a Raid bot. Oh my God, you can't get them because they're flying everywhere. You know, the Raid, the spray, man. And then the whole place stinks. Okay. Anyways, why is it important? Let's talk about this. Really important, really important. Adi, can you read this really quickly, Adi? Nice and loud, bro.
Yeah, sure. Brand storytelling is using a narrative to connect your brand to customers. It is a powerful way to build lasting connections with your audience. Compelling stories engage consumers, elicit emotion, and foster loyalty, forging a meaningful relationship that goes far beyond product and service.
Guys, here's something. You know, I teach part of my academy, when I teach the kids, I teach them persuasion. And persuasion has 2 aspects, okay? What's the 2? Can anybody, let's see if you guys know this. Two things, 2 aspects, the main things to persuade somebody. 2 different things. Can somebody tell me, what do you guys think when you want to persuade somebody? Will you persuade them through what? Through 2 things. What's the 2 things? What are the 2 ways in which you can persuade people through? The 2 ways. They're higher level, and then everything that you guys mentioned is kind of under those 2 ways.
Credibility.
Credibility, okay, is really important actually. And the credibility comes from, again, your story as well, right? When people see what I've gone through as a speaker, that builds credibility as well, right? But then without the stats, you lose that as well. Anything else?
Necessity.
Necessity? Okay, amazing. I'll tell you guys. So all that was good, but what I was going through is when you persuade, when you convince someone, you convince them through the mind. What was that, Zoo? What was that, Zoo?
Reasoning.
Reasoning. Okay, good. Reasoning. Now the reasoning happens. That's really probably the closest to the mind. The mind, which is facts, stats, evidence, like John mentioned, right? That's why it's perfect. Me and John are like tag team, man, because he really covers that part, right? The mind, the mind, the fact, the data, all that stuff. And then what's the second one? Now you guys should know.
Jacqueline put in emotion.
Emotion, which is
Body, soul,
emotion is what?
soul.
The what?
Heart.
The heart, yes, the heart, right? The mind and the heart. People convinced through the mind and the heart. Kids do this best. Kids do this best, you know? Mom, how could you do this to me? All my friends have an Xbox. I'm the only one still with a Nintendo. Please, you know, I'm getting bullied in class. Nobody likes me. Nobody wants to be my friend. Please buy me the Xbox. And then mom's, oh man, I feel bad for my son. You know, he's left out. I got to buy him the Xbox. That is persuasion through the what? Through the heart, right? Through the heart. And then John comes in. Dad, did you know that the Xbox is 10 times more powerful than the PlayStation? That's right, 10 times. Did you know that the graphics 2 times more powerful than Nintendo? That's right, Dad. That's why we should invest in the Xbox. And if we get the Xbox, I believe that our return is going to be multiplied, because when I play the Xbox, my reaction time is going to improve 3 times based on research, right? So now John Lamb is convincing his dad through the mind. I'm convincing my mom through the heart. Now you can combine both of them. You got the perfect formula. And now the story is more the heart. Okay, guys, it's more the heart, right? So include the heart with your mind. You got the perfect formula for success. Okay, here we go. In storytelling, guys, storytelling has been around for so long. Visual and oral stories, Stone Ages, 30,000 BC. They used to tell stories, sit around, rocks and tell stories to each other. They used to draw. You know, if you go to the pyramids, all the stories in the pyramids, those are all stories, right? That's how they communicated. Storytelling has been a way of communication for so long. Written storytelling, of course. We got newspapers, magazines, photographs, all these things. And digital storytelling, that's now the future, which is social media. Right? We tell our stories through our content, right? So just to understand, again, the importance of it. 80% of customers want to develop more meaningful relationships with brands, but they cannot connect with you without your story, right? Same thing when you're pitching. You want them to connect with you. So you want to share a piece of yourself. Without that, that connection cannot happen. Okay. 66% say that, they share their information, but the brand is not sharing theirs, right? And 55% say consumers love the brand story, are willing to make a purchase based on the story. In fact, I saw research showing that you can charge more for a product and get people to buy that product with a story compared to a product with no story. So imagine, it allows you to even charge more. Okay, so again, related to your pitch and your message. And remember, if a product is able to charge more with a story, how is your pitch strengthened with your story as well? Remember that. Let's get Kyla, can you read this one, Kyla, please, Kyla? And we're going to finish soon, guys, hopefully in really soon. Kyla, go ahead.
Sure. Why brand storytelling is important. Consumers are hungry for brands that allow them to develop real understanding and loyalty. But to do that, you as a brand must share enough to give customers an appreciation of your journey.
Of your journey. I just told you guys my journey, right? You're able to appreciate it, and you're able to appreciate my service 10 times more now because I've been through it, right? So again, I asked you, what is your story? Stories build trust. People do business with those they know, like, and trust, like I told you guys, right? So get people to know you through your story so that they can like you and trust you. And not just with your business, but when you meet people, share your story. When you meet with people, you want people to like you, don't be so private. Share a piece of yourself, where you came from, why are you here? Who are you? These are the things that you want to share, okay? In person and in your pitch, okay? We're kind of hitting both. We talked about this as well. They're memorable, 30 times more memorable when you tie a story to your fact. 2 minutes is the average time a customer will spend viewing your content on your website, whatever it is. It's quick, right? And 53% from those 2 minutes, only 53% content is consumed. Sorry, yeah. When they look at those 2 minutes, they miss most of it, right? So to really grab someone's attention, make sure you share your story, right? Papa John's, this was a really good one. I was actually I was eating at Niagara. Actually, anybody been to Niagara Falls? Raise your hand. You've been to Niagara Falls? Are we here? Everyone here? Yeah. I mean, I love Niagara Falls. I was just there a few days ago. I was in Papa John's eating pizza, guys, and I had a storytelling presentation for an organization. Like a few days later, I was putting it together. It was a total coincidence. I was eating. I looked to my right, and I see like a poster that they had, a frame with a picture like this that you see right now is just the Mustang, and Mustang and Papa John's behind the Mustang, and then the story of how Papa John started. And I read it, and it talked about how Papa John's, when he wanted to open up the pizza shop, he sold his favorite yellow Mustang. It was a 1971 Camaro, right? Camaro, not a Mustang. Sorry, I'm mixing up cars, guys. You see here, Camaro, right? He sold it to open up his pizza shop, and that's how bad he wanted to open the pizza shop. And then later, years later, when that pizza shop became multi-million-dollar business, what did he do? He bought that car back. He got ripped off, but you know what? He's a millionaire. Who cares? $270,000, right? $270,000 he paid for his new car. That guy got him good. That guy got him good. But hey, it didn't matter to him because the story was so important. That car had so much meaning. He bought it back. And now if you see Papa John's, when they have their stands, they have this Mustang everywhere. Why? Because the story is connected to it. For me, when I was eating that pizza, it was no longer just a pizza. It was a pizza with a personality. It was a pizza with character. It was a pizza with identity. So remember that, guys. Your business, what gives your business identity, personality, character? It's you and your story, right? You as a person, you are your brand, right? And you are your story is also connected to that. So make sure to not lose out on that opportunity, right? What is your story? This one, nail polish. I was buying nail polish for my wife. Dan, sorry, brother, I'm married. I know. I overcame, Dan, the number one fear, man. I overcame it, brother. I got you. I was buying nail polish for my wife, and they had the little postcard in the nail polish, our love story. And it talks about how he was studying medicine. He had no money. Anybody studying medicine's got no money, right? It's so expensive. And she wanted to buy this really expensive nail polish. He couldn't buy it for her. But he's in medicine. I guess, he knew the stuff. So he went, he made his own nail polish, and he gave it to her on a Tuesday. And then that's how his business started, right? And then so he called it Tuesday in Love. So it's even connected to the name of his business. And I found this so amazing. And, that's beautiful. And with every purchase, he puts this postcard with the story, right? It gets you to appreciate the journey, right? So I already told you my story. You don't have to worry about that. Now, your question is, okay, I got a story. What do I do? How do I tell my story? What do I share in my story? It's simple. Keep it simple, guys. It's like, you're telling a friend. Don't think it's got to be like a thesis statement. Some people come up and they got the biggest words in the world to impress. Don't do that, please, in your pitch. Please keep it simple, as if you are talking to a friend. Presentation is about conversation. You're not here to report. You're here to conversate. You're talking to your audience. You're connecting with them as if you are connecting with your friend. Think of you're pitching to your friend. You're telling your friend why your business is so amazing and why they need to invest, right? How would you do it? You're not going to go in with these big words and in conclusion, moreover, these words you're not going to use, guys, in a proper conversation, right? You're not. So don't use them in a presentation, because a lot of people think, oh, speech presentation's got to be so formal. No, it's got to be relatable. You got to be able to relate with your people. And for that to happen, keep it casual, keep it normal, right? So who you are, talk about that. How did your company come to exist? What is your company vision, mission, values, all that stuff? Who you do it for, who do you help, right? Talk about that. Who do you help? For me, it's the youth, it's the future. I want to see them grow up and be able to excel in any field that they do, because communication is required in any field. So I want them to become leaders in their fields, and that's why I do it, right? So why are you doing it? What you're doing, right? Think about that. Why you do it? We talked about that. Where are you headed? The future as well. You make sure you talk about that. All this stuff is personal. It's the heart, right? It does get a little bit of the brain, or the John's part as well is here, right? Where you are headed, they want to hear that. They want to hear that you have a future, you have a vision, right? And then just think about what's your story. This is the question that I ask you guys now: is what is your story? Do you have a story? Is it a good story? What can you do to spice up your story a little bit while keeping it sincere, right? And obviously you don't want to make it too long. John gave you that outline, right? Of everything that you got to do and where storytelling has to be. Now, you have to make sure it's strategic so that it's not long where you don't get the other stuff. And it's not too short where you don't give the feeling, right? Which is really, really important. Let me share one thing here. That was really good. So now that you kind of have an idea on storytelling and why it's important, I do want to give you some quick presentation tips, because you guys have to present at the end of the day. You want to make sure that you have good presentation skills. And it's not easy because we're not all professionals in this. And this is something that I put together after, competing multiple times. When you compete and you speak and all that, you really have to be on top of your game, right? You have to be the best of the best, because if you're not, someone will beat you, right? And let me just get it here, but I have to remove this. Okay. And so you have to be on top of your game. And again, like I said, it's your presentation is yourself, right? It's your memory. So let me just share. Okay, there we go. We got it. So I'm gonna give you great 17 tips really quickly. We're gonna go over these tips so that you can kind of just think about this when you are presenting next time and make sure that you have it covered. Okay, guys? Here we go. Slideshow. Let me just conquer slide. Perfect. Start and end strong. We talked about this one, okay? Start and end strong. First and last impression. 2, give eye contact right to the camera, right? But not all the time. Go up and down. Practice your speech before you present. John covered this one. Practice, like he said. But don't sound scripted. Sometimes you practice so much where you're like a robot. You memorize every single word. Don't do that. Don't over practice. Don't under practice. Leave some for, for freestyling, right? You got to freestyle a little bit, guys. Make it real, make it personal, because remember, people connect with you when it's personal. Get vulnerable. If you've had some struggles in your business, if you had something that you want to share, it's not about, it's not about your weakness. It's how you overcame your weakness. That's what they look for. In an interview, when they ask you, what's your biggest weakness? It's the worst when you come up, my biggest weakness is I work too hard. I work so hard that, I end up spending all day working hard. And I don't have time for myself or for my family. And I wish I didn't have this weakness. I just, when I get this job, my fear is that I'll work too hard in this job. Guys, no, don't do that, because they'll be like, man, this guy is giving us bull. Give a real weakness and then tell us how you overcame that weakness, right? It's about how you overcame, not about the actual weakness. So get vulnerable with your business too. It's not about your mistakes. It's about how you overcame your mistakes. Have vocal variety. Don't speak with the same tone the whole way through. Please, guys, please. Because if you do, there will be a lot of people that will fall asleep. And if they fall asleep, you will not win. And it's going to be hard for you because you're not going to be able to really, the audience energy is not going to be there. So change your voice. Go up and then go down. But don't go like that. I mean, it's not a drama show, guys, but you get me. All right. It's not a drama. So relax. Don't overdo it, man. But it's drama class, back in the days, those were good days. But have vocal variety. Use names when you're referring to people. Use their names. Okay, it allows the audience to connect. Paint the picture with your words. Get your audience to imagine. If you're talking about your struggle, get them to imagine your struggle, right? Get them to see it. Get them to feel it. Get them to smell it, right? Get them to feel as if they were in your shoes, right? They do this. If you watch Shark Tank and Dragon's Den, when they come up, a lot of times when they're about to lose, they start crying. Oh, I had to struggle. Guys, I've seen it. I've seen it happen they start crying and they get a deal. I said, I can't believe it. So it works. It works. But get really people to feel it. Right? I mean, don't cry next week or whatever your presentation is. Please don't do that. But I mean, if you do it sincere, it's fine. You could do it. But just again, trying to give you an idea. Paint a picture with your words. Take a few seconds. This one, so many people do this incorrectly, including my students. They do this a lot. They're so nervous. They just want to get started. It's their turn. And, no, relax. There's confidence in just being subtle and calm, right? It's your turn. They clap for you. Yes. Next up is John Lamb, the startup man. John Lamb comes up and he's ready. John, just chill out. Stay there. Smile, right? Wait until the audience settles down and then get started. Don't be so relax, calm down. You have to control the audience. You're the boss. When you speak, You're the boss. Number 10, don't lecture the audience. If you start with your story first, they want to listen to your lesson after. It's like when you smoke, don't smoke. Smoking is bad. Smoking is bad. Smoking is going to kill you. The people are going to be like, I'm tired of hearing this. I hear this all the time. Lecture, 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 lecture. But if you tell them a story of how your uncle got affected by smoking and maybe passed away, and then why smoking is bad, they're more likely to listen to you. So when your pitch as well, when you start with your story and then you give your facts, they're more likely to listen to you. Let's see what else we got. You're almost done. Stay within time limit. This is number 1. In a contest, you will lose if you go above time limit. For us, it was 30 seconds over, 30 seconds under. I'm not sure what you guys have here, but make sure to follow it. Number 12, keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate. I've done so many pitch contests, so many. And the guy goes up, man, and we do this. At the end of the presentation, I said, what do you do, brother? I don't know what you do. What's your business? I have no idea, because just too much information. Too much information. Sometimes simplicity is key. So please, if they give you 5 minutes and you want to just squeeze everything in that 5 minutes, you don't have to. Sometimes a 3-minute person is going to beat the 5-minute person. Right? Number 13, question for you. If you stop midway in your speech, will they want to hear more? Will they say, man, you got to continue. You please continue. Oh, no, what's going to happen next? Will they? That's a question for you. Now, question for all of you. When you watch your favorite show, put in the chat, what's your favorite shows, guys? Put in the chat, please. What are your favorite shows? Type in the chat. I know it's got nothing to do with business. Don't worry. What's your favorite show? What time we got? 8:04. We'll be done soon. What's your favorite shows, guys? But anyways, guys, the reason why there's a purpose why I'm asking your favorite show. When you finish one episode and you got to go to sleep, you got work tomorrow, but you're like, you know what? I got to watch the second episode. Or maybe the first 5 minutes of the second episode. I just want to know what happens next. What makes you want to continue that show? What makes you want to watch the next episode of a show? Can someone tell me? Cliffhanger, yes. Funny. Anticipation of what's coming, yeah. You can yell it out too through the mic. Invested in the people. Oh, I love that, Tina. Look at that. Tina knows where I'm going. To get to know what comes next, yeah. Our curiosity, yeah. So all these things that you mentioned here, guys, all these things that you mentioned, I asked you, how can you do that for your pitch? How can you do that for your speech? How can you do that for your presentation? Yeah, if you stop right there and then, the judge is like, no, you got to keep going. We got to know what happens next, right? So that's a question you got to ask yourself, okay? It's a really, really important question, but it's a question that will make or break your presentation. Number 14, don't run off camera after you finish your speech. My students do this all the time. They turn off their camera, turn off their mic as soon as they're done. Don't do that. Finish presenting, stand still, let them clap. Let them clap, let them greet, be happy, smile. Yes, take the applause. And then they'll move on. Number 15, make sure to pause. Sometimes a pause is the best thing you can do to capture people's curiosity and attention. It doesn't have to be that long, but pause once in a while, right? Between sentences, between paragraphs, between your story and your facts or whatever it is, make sure you pause. Be 16, be aware of your body language, which is your hands right here, like I mentioned. Make sure your hand, you don't want to be moving like this, guys, because people are going to do, they're going to lose track. So don't go everywhere, but use your hands, Donald Trump does a great, I know, guys, listen, I know Donald Trump, but he does a great job in using his hands. Just watch him speak. He's always, he has his hands here, hands here. He can persuade. Hey, maybe he's not talking facts. Maybe he's not, but he can persuade. He can make you believe that your hair is orange and it's black. The guy's good. And people believe that. So just, and he does something really well. Just watch. He's always using his hands like this, like, wow, big, amazing. You see him when he's talking about something big, his hand go like that. He's just really good at it. Obama does the same thing. Very, very good. And with the pauses, if you listen to Obama, he does it a lot. He pauses, right? And he gets to the next sentence and he pauses, right? I'm not pausing a lot in the presentation because I got no time, right? We got to move, and I don't want to go too long because our goal is to finish 8:10, hopefully. Last is have fun. Audience wants you to succeed. Remember this always, because when we go in, we always think we're gonna fail, we're gonna mess up, we're gonna screw up. That's our negative thinking. Don't let that affect you. Actually, before I do any presentation, here's something you guys can do. I always talk to myself. I say, Hassan, you are the man. If anybody can do it, You can. Go out there, kill it. You've done this before. You presented. You know you're gonna do an amazing job. I just talked good to myself for like a good 5 minutes. I'm not joking, guys. You gotta do that. You gotta self-talk. You have to be your own cheerleader. If you're not your own cheerleader, who's gonna be your cheerleader, right? If you don't believe in yourself, who's gonna believe in you? You gotta believe in yourself first. So remember to do that self-talk before you present. Get your posture up. When you're like this, you slouch, you're gonna be less confident, 100%. Back to the fact, John Lamb loves facts. Stats show, guys, that if your posture is bad, your confidence will be low. How you walk also, you know. So before you present, do the Superman pose. That's what they say. Chest up. Guarantee within 30 seconds, a minute, you're gonna feel better. Right? You know, Tony Robbins. Anybody know Tony Robbins? Tony Robbins. Raise your hand if you know Tony Robbins. One of the most successful businessmen, entrepreneurs, speakers. What does he do before he speaks? Anybody know? What does he jump on before he goes on? He actually has a trampoline outside, backstage, before every show. And he jumps on his trampoline. Can you believe the guy's huge? He's massive. He jumps on his trampoline, gets his energy out, and then goes in. So because that gets him more confident. Now, guys, don't overdo it. I'll tell you one time I overdid it. I was doing jumping jacks and push-ups before an interview, right? I said, I'm gonna pull a Tony Robbins, man. I'm gonna get these guys. I was jumping jack, push-up, jumping jack. I'm a fitness, right? And then I go in and I go into the interview and I'm going in every answer, boom, 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 boom. And I left the interview and then whoever's interviewing me, they knew me personally. So they said, Hassan, after you left, everybody outside said, what's going on in there? Why was the guy yelling at you the whole time? So guys, this was a long time ago and I was so energetic. So I jumped too much. I went in there, I was so loud and it seemed like I was yelling at them the whole presentation, but they knew me. I still got the job, guys. Still got the job. But because they knew me, they said, he means well. So balance, right? But find ways to really, find ways to get your energy up before a presentation so that when you speak, the energy actually comes out, okay? Remember to start strong, remember to end strong, good impression, first impression, end strong so that you last with a memory. Give your facts, as John said, your data, your backup on why you're amazing, because you're gonna talk about that. You're gonna, again, the flash is important, but flash without substance is not good, right? It's not credible. So make sure you have both. Go in there. Don't feel, don't allow yourself to talk yourself down. Have your self-talk. Prepare beforehand, practice, and then go in. Derby, I have a question. Okay, great. Let me just see here. How should you introduce your story to a lender over the phone? And how long should you talk about your business? Lender over the phone. Can someone tell me what a lender over the phone means? Anytime you're, well, let's just do a general, Derby. In general, when you're speaking, especially over the phone, you got literally like 20 seconds, not even. It's got to be quick. You don't want to overdo it because first of all, the phone is tough, right? Because they don't see you. But again, it's even tougher than online. So that's why you really have to pump up your enthusiasm and your passion as well. But you don't want to spend too much time talking about yourself either. Usually I ask the person question, make it about them, and then I'm able to present them with the answer. It's like when they say, sell me this pen, right? I ask, what are you looking for in a pen? And then I provide them. If I have the pen that provides what they're looking for, then I will give them that. But if I just talk, and the person has no interest in my pen because he's looking for something else, I'm wasting my time, and you're wasting their time, and they're not happy. So I would say have the balance, right? Have the balance of not talking for too long and also not making it all about yourself as well. Whoever you're pitching to, make sure you know what they want first. Make sure that you know what they want so that you can sell what you're giving, whether it's your business, whether it's your pitch. That's the best sale. That's the best sale, is when you ask questions and then you're able to deliver based on those questions, okay?
So can I jump in there?
Yeah, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Has anybody ever heard of a phone pitch? Raise your hand if you've heard of a phone pitch. What about a phone conversation? Do you have a conversation on the phone, or do you have a pitch on the phone, right? So if you're engaging with a lender or if you're engaging with anybody on the phone, It's a conversation, right? So let it flow. You know, how should you introduce your story? Well, first, introduce yourself. Be personable. Ask how their day is going, right? Connect with the person and then jump into it, right? And say, hey, I don't want to, spend too much time. I don't want to waste too much of your time. I'm going to jump right into it. I'll tell you about my business, what I'm doing, and I would love to answer your questions after. Like, be frank, be honest, be authentic, and have that conversation.
Don't sound like a salesman or saleswoman. Okay, guys, that's one thing is exactly what John said. Keep it real, like you're speaking to a friend, but don't overdo it, because some people can go on for days, especially on the phone. It's a scary thing. At the end of the day, they have things to do. Even asking them if this is a good time, a lot of times that you're giving them an opportunity to exit at that point. But you really have to play it by situation as well. Thank you so much, John. And guys, I think I wish you the best of luck in your presentations. I think you'll do great. And remember, it's not about whether you win or lose; it's the experience. The pressure that you'll have through doing this will allow you to be a much better person, much better entrepreneur, much better salesperson, much better presenter. Yeah, thank you for having me. And maybe John, you can end it with a few words as well. And since we got both of us on the screen, and then we can go from there. I'm done on my end, but John, any last words on your end, John?
That's really about it. Keep it authentic, right? You need to know your message. Once you know your message, then you can talk and you can have that conversation, right? So know who you are, be confident in what you're doing, and be excited about what you're doing, because like Hassan said, if you're not, nobody else will be, right? So keep it authentic, be yourself, and let it shine, and practice, practice, practice.
Have fun. Have fun. Yeah, there you go. I know this part people forget. Thank you so much, guys. Round of applause for John and the Startup Man and all the organizers and everybody that was here today